Hi, I'm Dr. Amy Robbins, and welcome to the Life, Death, and Space Between. First of all, today's episode, if you have a chance to watch it on YouTube, will be quite entertaining because I took my show on the road. It is a mobile podcast. And by mobile, I mean I had to record it in my car because I was trying to be too many places at one time and did not want to cancel with this amazing, amazing guest, Sah D'Simone. So if you are watching it, sorry about the crazy background. If you are listening, I think it's still as good a quality as ever. As a matter of fact, the download speed was even better in my car than it is at home, which is saying something. So I'm really excited for you all to hear this conversation because Sah, like myself, is someone who is passionate about spirituality, and he is the international best-selling author of Spiritually We, and his podcast, which was Spiritually Sassy. He's changing and reworking the podcast, so stay tuned. But he is in the spiritual care department at Cedars-Sinai Hospital, a guest lecturer at Columbia, and believes so wholeheartedly in a spiritual path. He walks that in his life. He walks it in his work. And it was only because of an experience that totally brought him to his knees that led him to this spiritual path. So I think you are going to love this fun, lighthearted, but very important conversation about spiritually we and what it means to see the world as we and the collective versus me and I and the separate. So with that, enjoy today's episode of Life, Death, and the Space Between. Welcome, Sah, to Life, Death, and the Space Between.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So you and I have very spiritual belief systems, and I want to understand from you, because this wasn't always where you lived in this spiritual space, not even close. How did the spiritual path open for you, and how did you come to kind of let go of what we in Western society believe and value and shift that towards this we?
Thank you for saying all this and bringing this into the mix right away. Well, from a young age, I did have almost like these, the language I have now, it's almost like these hunted experiences where I would feel things that I couldn't see with the eyes in my face. I would see things with the corner of my eyes. I would just have this like deeper sensibility that there is more to life than what meets our senses. But I didn't make much of it. I was actually truly terrified. And then, fast forward to the fall of 2012, I was working in the fashion industry, creative director of a fashion magazine, thinking I was like some hot shit, thinking I like did the thing, as an immigrant in America, hanging out with celebrities, working with celebrities, making money, being able to support family and extended family, and like, wearing the labels, doing all the sort of like capitalistic economy, propaganda of what happiness is. I was like, oh my God, I'm young and I'm doing it. Wow, this is like I'm a anomaly. It's working. But little did I know that I was just like masking this, ongoing depression, anxiety, addiction. But I was celebrated by my accomplishments so much that I didn't have time to question, like, am I operating as a trauma response? Am I operating through my addictive, depressive, anxious tendencies? Is this healthy or unhealthy? Is this harmful or and dysfunctional? I wasn't harming other people.
The ego, right?
Yeah.
The ego like loves everything you're talking about.
Yes.
It's like, feed me more, feed me more.
That's right. It was this insatiable, hungry ghost approach to life. And because I wasn't harming other people, I was only harming myself. There wasn't room for life to like stop me and give me an intervention. You know how it's easier when we have people who are harming other people. It's like, yo, life kind of bends together and people stop. This wasn't the case for me. Well, I should take that back, because the fall of 2012 is when I was bought out of the fashion industry. So life said, enough with all this, you know? So I do want to emphasize that, like, sometimes we don't know that we need a break, and then life does give us the break, the big pause, you know? So 2012, fall of 2012, I left the fashion industry, and I was really sort of like a basic little cookie looking up online, like, what is well-being? What is happiness? What is peace? Like, what is like genuine? Like, what is spirituality? Like, really just curious, no clue. And
So
then one
what
thing
got you from like brought to your knees to let me explore spirituality? Because that's a far leap, and you were young at the time.
I was young, yeah. Well, not too young. I was 27, turning 28. It was just the like, my life was completely flipped upside down overnight, you know, like the truth of betrayal. The two friends that I was the co-founder of this magazine with decided to buy me out of the magazine. So it wasn't just like losing a job and status, it was losing my best friends. And because I worked with them and partied with them, and it was just like the full scope of what I thought was my life was taken away from me overnight. So the rock bottom was so severe that there was nothing else besides, hey, what is on the other side of this? What is happiness even mean? You know, the choice to search for spirituality and wellness and these higher truths came through a rock bottom. And I usually say it's either like you're bored or it's through a rock bottom. You know, your life is either very basic and you're so bored with it, you become curious, or it's through these awful experiences. And I think a lot of us fall into that category. So through searching online, one thing led to another. It was all the answers were leading to the East. Go to India, go study Buddhism, go study the Vedic philosophy, go look at what these, Eastern gurus have to say. And then I ended up going to a 10-day silent retreat, introductory into Buddhist practice in the north of India. And then after that, I went to meet the Dalai Lama with a group of 200 other people. And it's in that moment that I started to understand these much higher truths that I had no context for. The Dalai Lama speaking to a room of 200 people, an open space, not even a closed space. I felt completely different inside of myself. Like, my discursive thinking went quiet. My felt sense was heightened, but I wasn't like overly identifying with anything. It was just like, I was just like open sky all of a sudden. And I looked at my friends, I was like, did we get drugged? What happened? What is going on? You know?
So that like transcendent experience.
Yeah.
That does feel like a drug, I think. I mean, it's not different from a psychedelic trip.
That's right. But how do we do it in a sober approach? And and that's the thing. I didn't have language for it, Amy. Like, how can the presence of a human being have such a deep impact in my well-being, in my capacity to just be a totally like fresh, like, just like, oh my God. And I was like, okay, I want that. I want to have that kind of power. I want to be able to do that. I want to be able to walk into rooms where I relax people, or people feel like they can be themselves, where the past no longer weighs in them, where the future is no longer something that's insatiable, that we're insatiably looking forward to. It's like there's just here and now. Like, non-verbally, can my presence be an invitation for people to relax and to find home and safety in their bodies? I was like, I want that. And that's when it all started. It was through doing a 10-day silent retreat, having that experience with His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And then later, that trip, I went to Nepal to do a 30-day meditation retreat. And that's when I really lost my shit. And then I sort of found another deeper way of going about life. And the Spiritually We, the book, has... it's been a long time coming, but one thing that really like reminded me, inspired me to write the book, was the fact that I wasn't always surrounded by good friends. People didn't call on me to cry. People didn't call on me to celebrate something that was happy in their lives. I was the person that people called to, let's go get fucked up, let's go party. It was very much like, let's disassociate together. So I was that disassociative friend for people, which there's room for it in life, but that's, looking back, that's not what we want for the longevity of our lives. We want to be able to be there for people through happy and sad, through someone got a new job or a promotion or something excited. They feel excited to call you because you're happy with them, for them, like that kind of a thing.
Yeah. So I have a couple questions.
Please.
How do you think about spirituality without bypassing? Because I think that in our Western culture, and you talk about this in the book, you actually talk about it. I can bring this quote in now. Well, I have a couple that I wrote down. So one, you wrote you said something about modern spirituality and wellness culture, which likes to dress as spirituality. This notion of, quote, love and light. And I could not be more with you on that. How do you address that with people, and how do you take people deeper into themselves? Because that's really what it's about, right? Is going to those dark, yucky parts that we don't like to look at.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing this in. I think what happens in the modern wellness space, this idea of hyper productivity and performance and peak experience and feeling good and looking good. This is kind of what's in the vernacular, and we attribute these states and aesthetics to spirituality, which is the further from the truth, because it's feeling good all the time isn't the goal of the spiritual path. The spiritual path is about staying in a place of letting go. Happiness comes, oh, thank you for visiting me, I'll let you go. Sadness comes, thank you for visiting me, I let you go. It's just a constant state of letting go. There's no holding on to any of it. And I think in the vernacular of modern day wellness, it really robs people of the opportunity of being nurtured by the darkness. Like when you walk at nighttime, certain flowers, scent the air only at nighttime. Certain vegetables only grow at nighttime. There's so much that happens in the dark, so much that happens at night, that we're robbing ourselves the opportunity to be able to explore that and befriend that. And I think the good vibes only, let's feel good all the time, let's be happy all the time, let's be productive all year round, it's the opposite of what spirituality is reminding us and calling us into exploring and being, not feeling the grief that comes with being alive because you need to move on. Your mom's been dead for 2 years or maybe a decade, or move on, get all of this things that are so hurtful for the griever and for the human being in general. It really just robs us of our full humanity, of really being a whole self, which encompasses grief and gratitude, the beauty and the ugly. And unless we really are ready to befriend all aspects of ourselves, we're going to stay in this circumstantial search for happiness, which you really quickly will realize that it's just, you never reach it. There's always another high. There's always another peak. There's always another thing to accomplish. And how can we open ourselves up to feel it all as what they are, passing sensations? Yes, some of them have heavier weight, some of them have lighter weight, some of them uplift us, some of them contract us, but can it all just be okay, not happy or sad or good or bad? I think we see anger as bad or grief as bad. And so we shy away from feeling it. We shy away from exploring it. And in our society that says produce 24/7, 365, it's not how nature works. There's a season a year that we produce, So I think we can look at the capitalistic market economy and the wellness culture and kind of weave it all together and see that we are afraid of things that don't fit the the bill of being pretty, you know, and it really robs people of like aging well and crying more often and most important in the context of the book, you know, to tie it back to it, is to address that we're all deeply lonely, that people don't
Mhm.
have friends, that people are dying alone. You know, one thing that would became super alarming for me, Amy, after writing the book, because through my mother's death and having finished the book, but I started training as a clinical chaplain, so offering support to the sick and dying at a hospital. One thing I noticed, Amy, which was so alarming, and everyone listening, like, pay attention to these words because this is the most heartbreaking of it all, is, you know, statistically speaking, when you look online, they say 40% of the elderly population don't have social support when they enter a hospital. But being in a hospital at one of the number one hospitals, at the number one hospital in California, which then puts you on the map of like maybe top 10 in the world, um, I can say that the 40% is not accurate. We're looking at more like 60 to 80% of the elderly population who
Mm.
enters a hospital has no social support, which means they're not in touch with their family. They have no friends. They're dying alone. The only person holding their hands, oftentimes, it's me or someone in the chaplaincy team. So
Yeah,
we have to question this, you know.
absolutely. Can we talk about death? Because death for you, and you talk about in your book, Spiritually We, this, you kind of got to the point where you had to face your own mortality in the space of your meditations. And this is something that
Mhm.
I talk about often with people. It's part of this course that I'm teaching. Is one of the parts of the course is on death meditation. What was that like for you when you were brought to that place? Because it is so, I think it's so powerful as a
Mhm.
contemplative practice. So can you talk
Mhm.
a bit
Mhm.
for you? How
Yes.
did that bring you to kind of the depths of understanding yourself?
Thank you for bringing this up because this is like so huge. I'm like, you either have, I often say that like the way to actually, you know, take your life seriously is to meditate on your death, is to
Mm.
come to face with your mortality. And we have a death phobic society. So to bring death into the mix, it's like, I don't want to talk about that because we think we're so superstitious in ways that aren't healthy, which is like, you know, talking about death does not manifest illness, does not manifest your death. It actually helps you to become more honest, more vulnerable, you know, more authentic, really, at the end of the day.
Well, and
So to
isn't
me,
that
the
sort
way,
of the love and light, right? Like let's
uh,
stay in the love and light all the time and not at all
exactly.
touch the dark. I mean, death is like always this grim, dark place, right? Even when we think of it symbolically.
Exactly. So yeah, it does not fit the modern wellness vernacular. Death is not part of it because I can inject my face with more filler, more Botox so I can look younger than ever. I can do another biohacking IV of NAD and another, you know, ice bath and another this, and I can go to another retreat and you know, plug in the market economy into wellness
Mm.
so I can defy the odds of the aging body that gets sick, that actually does die inevitably. All of us will die. And there's something beautiful about that too, which kind of goes against the love and light circuit. We get to be forgotten. How beautiful is that, Amy? That we get
Mm.
to be forgotten. That like within 3 generations, no
Mm.
one's going to remember our names and our personalities and what we liked and we didn't like. That I liked, you know, salted caramel ice cream, and you liked perhaps a strawberry with a sprinkle of whatever. You know,
I
like
love
all
chocolate,
the.
chocolate, chocolate. The more chocolate you
That's
can give
right.
me, the better.
Yeah, that's right. You know, so things like this that we all will be forgotten. It's like there's such a small margin of the population who gets remembered for a few extra years, or maybe for a couple thousand years. But the vast majority of us will live very simple lives, you know, and to pretend that we're not going to die and to pretend that it won't inevitably happen is part of the love and light culture, part of the let me not talk about it because that means I will be able to pretend it will never happen. But to circle back to your original question, dear, I was kind of you know, like shoved into it. You sign up for this 10-day introductory course to Tibetan Buddhism within like Mahayana, Vajrayana hybrid, these lineages of Buddhist practice. And on the last 3 days of this retreat, we're talking 10 years ago now, we were meditating on our own death. So like day one, you realize you're told by the doctor you have a terminal illness. Day two, you are telling your friends and your loved ones. Day three, which is the last day, you are telling the friends that you only want to who you want to be around you for the last few moments of your life. And through that process, it was incredible to see the psychosomatic response that all of us had. There was 80 people in this meditation hall high up in the Himalayas. You know, looking out the window, it's a snow-capped, beautiful, holy mountains of the Himalayas. And in this room, all of us coughing and throwing up and diarrhea, the full scope, all of us like having these visceral experiences by facing our own mortality, by meeting our death with just the power of our imagination. And I want to bring something in that Carl Jung says, great, psychiatrist, psychoanalyst, Swiss. And he says something that I paraphrase. He says, death has intent. Like the death itself has intent, that it wants something from us, for us. We think that death is only here to rob us of living. But what if us contemplating death, what if us facing our own death made us better friends, made us better lovers, better parents, better citizens, better neighbors, avoiding death because there's always a tomorrow? It creates this culture of desensitized people, of apathy, of loneliness, So when we are able to really come to terms with the fact that we're all going to die, something beautiful happens,
And I would encourage people, as you were listening, to think about what you were feeling as you started to talk about all of this, because I noticed in myself, and I've done death meditations before, that even as you were saying the words, imagine what it's like telling your family you have a terminal illness. The doctor tells you have a terminal illness. You start to notice, I started to notice my chest tightening up a little bit, like the anxiety riding up in me. It's like, oh my God, holy cow, what does it mean? And then what comes from that, I believe, and I think this is what you're saying, is truly the experience of living.
Exactly. That's right. And I'm so glad you brought this somatic checkpoint into the mix, because this having somatic checkpoints when we're talking about death, we really realize that like we are deeply afraid. And even asking your body right now, where does the fear of death live in me? Where is it alive in my body? And then meeting it, like just bring your awareness to the place in the body where you feel that, and just say, dear fear, thanks for visiting me. Like I'm here. Thank you for visiting me. And you just bring your awareness to the place in the body. And by being with that feeling, it will run its course. And then slowly, you'll start to befriend your death. And then you're going to be able to like have a cup of tea, or maybe you need a Diet Coke and a cigarette, whatever floats your boat, to be able to write your health directive and to be able to like plan, the how you want to die, and then I think most important, before we even get to how we want to die, is to emphasize the life of like, go be a better friend, reach out, don't distract yourself. This is the call that I am literally so excited about, is that yes, by facing our death, by being with the dying, what it does is it gives us passion to live,
Right.
That so many people are so apathetic and so frozen, so numb because of the state of the world. I understand, but go out to your communities, go out to your friends, reach out, say, I need a friend, I need connection. Don't get distracted, sucked into the social media, the TV, the food, the drink, the drugs, alcohol, like all the things that are so our society. I'm not someone that's pointing fingers at systems that are here to rob us from living, but look around. There's a new TV show launching every other day. There's a new, there's always something else that's like here to rob us from the present moment, to distract us from feeling, and I think the ultimate backbone of the feeling that I want people to address is the loneliness, the deep desire to connect, that we're wired for it. And then you look at spiritual scriptures, liberation is relational. You can't become enlightened. You can't go for the Buddha goal, the Buddhahood alone. You know, you need to test your material. Requires you to be in connection.
Yeah. And I think that we've gotten so individualized, right? Like, to your point, the book is called Spiritual We, not Spiritual Me. And I think so many of us are afraid to be vulnerable with another friend. We don't really share what's going on. And so then they don't share what's going on. And it's this, well, I don't want to be the one to show that my life isn't as perfect as it looks on X, Y, and Z. I mean, you have a much bigger following than I do, but I have people say to me, and it's fascinating, who say to me all the time, oh my God, it looks like you're killing it. And I'm like, don't be fooled by social media. Don't be fooled. Like, it is a grind, and it is, you know, it's constant, and it's not all what you see. And I think it's so, hard and getting harder to be authentic. So where can we find authenticity with the people around us? And how do we begin to break down the walls from the me to the we?
Such good questions. Thank you. Thank you, dear Amy. I think authenticity comes from, this is such a good question. There's so many ways for me to go about this, but I think to bring back to the death conversation, being a death positive person is the greatest gateway to being authentic, you know, because if death isn't part of your vernacular, authenticity is probably likely not part of it either. So I think to find your authenticity is to take a moment and just realize, I will die. I will be forgotten. I get to make mistakes. I get to live boldly. I get to change my name. I get to shave my head. I get to do whatever I want. I get to go explore. And hopefully the things that I'm exploring and curious about also benefits other people. So that's a fulfilling, meaningful life right there. And then when it comes to vulnerability and authenticity in relationships, I'm going to share just a tiny little exercise here, is to bring in your secret parts, which means the parts of yourself that people don't get to see, don't get to experience, unless sometimes you're having a tantrum or a mental breakdown where you lash out at people. But most of the times we have been trained, hyper socialized to pretend that we're okay constant. Look at the hello, how are you culture that we live in. Everywhere we go, hello, how are you? Good, good. It's like, you know, you may even say it. Yeah, exactly.
I read that because, sorry to interrupt.
Please go.
But I was doing a text exchange with this woman who I just adore, who does a lot of somatic healing work, and she does beautiful sound sessions. And she texted me, how are you? And I wrote her like an essay. And she's like, I appreciate your thoughtfulness in answering that question. Like, it was not like I'm all good, or it was like, here's what's going on for me. And it's been a little bit of a rocky road this past month and a half. And then she came back with an equally as vulnerable interaction that then just like deepened our communication with one another.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks for bringing that in, and thanks for leading the way with that, Amy, because people can look up to you and yes, seeing a fraction of our lives on social media and think that it's all you know, this or that, but it's all of it, you know. So the hello, how are you good thing, it's like it just, we're so hyper socialized to do that we don't stop to be like, oh wow, a part of me is grieving, a part of me is anger, a part of me is excited, a part of me is inspired, a part of me is curious, and like to look at all of the parts that make up the experience that each of us are. So, and now the little exercise that I wanted to offer is to just invite people in. And this is applicable for conflict, right? Because in conflict, oftentimes in the space that we're in today, where we are cutting off people, we are canceling people, we are calling people toxic, we are setting up these firm boundaries, like we're creating these protective walls that are helpful to a degree, but in the long term will keep you deeply lonely and afraid. And then it might just be a little bit harder to change when your walls become so solid. So to work in a way that doesn't happen, what you can do is to invite someone into your most authentic, vulnerable state, is to let them into like, when this happens, or instead of saying when you do this, it's like when these things happen, when you don't text me back, when you say, when we agree to something and then it doesn't happen, or when voices are raised, when like you can plug in try to be free of blame, that statement, right? So it's more neutral. When this happens, when I don't receive a text back, when things get loud, I feel this. When I feel this, I think these thoughts. When I think these thoughts, I want to act in these ways. So you can say, when voices get loud, I feel scared. Right. And when I feel scared, I think that you don't love me. I think that I'm unlovable. I think that I'm not deserving of care and love. And I just want to drink myself to sleep.
Well, and that's
like where letting someone into that.
Right. And that's where I think you talk about the hysterical is historical. It's when we have these hysterical reactions to things that are the opportunity to take the step back and say, wait, what is this actually about for me? And that path that you just led people through, I think is a beautiful way of doing that, of really threading together. Here's what I'm feeling. Let me check in as to why I'm feeling it. And what's another way, in psychology, this is like a basic primitive defense is acting out. And so you have to undo that defense and teach people that progress to recognize what they're feeling so they don't have to act out their feelings, but that they can, you talk about this, like communicate their feelings, right? Nonviolent communication. How can I communicate my feelings clearly?
Exactly. Beautiful. And I also want to add something too, which is a little edgy, that we write in the book. Is instead of trying to always look for the why I feel the way I feel, which is so much of the space these days, we always want to find reasoning for why I feel the way I feel.
The one reason, the one place, like you want to trace it back to like the time your parent said X to you is the reason that you are the way you are.
Exactly. Thank you for being a clinical psychologist and saying this. And I'm smiling over here because so often when I'm training psychologists in this somatic methodology that we have, it's so interesting because a lot of the times we have people are so driven to find that one reason why. And unless they don't have, if they can't find it, that means they can't heal. But the truth is, look at how you feel right now in your body. Look at how big your reaction is to something this small. This overreaction is a sign of emotional residue. It's a sign of emotional baggage. It's alive and stored in your body that's coming up for you to feel. And stop looking for evidence in the present moment to match the context of how you feel, because you were going to make up stories. Your mind is it's very powerful. Yeah. Very powerful, very creative. So it's going to make up stories, But so stop doing that and just feel the feelings. And a simple thing to do is to just go to the body. The biggest question to ask you is, where in the body do I feel what I feel when I feel? The game will start changing for you. You're not going to be so driven to give a story, a concept, a narration, to criticize, to talk back to the stories. We can't heal by talking back to our stories, or even by using the power of voice and communication and validation to process entirely. You see this with your clients, it's sometimes people share this, the same story for a decade, but because they're trying to find a new perception, a new outcome for something that happened by talking about it. The only way for you to see your story through a new lens is by you feeling the feelings that were trapped in the story. Right. When you free the feelings that were trapped in a story, the story doesn't have the same weight. So you have a wider view. You can see, oh, wow, this is what was really going on. Not my myopic self-serving view of it. And this is harsh because I think people feel like releasing the trapped emotions in their stories and their stories not having power anymore. Who am I without my painful stories, you know?
Well, right. And I think there's like so much here, right? There's this notion of embodiment and there's so many people that are completely dissociated from their bodies for all kinds of reasons. And so first you need to get people embodied back in their body. And you do that through dance, right? Dance is movement is a big way you do that. But there's all kinds of ways to come back into your body. And what was the next place I was going to go from here? It'll come back to me.
It's okay.
But
it's okay.
Yeah. But this notion of first getting back into your body and then starting to identify where am I feeling the feeling in my body and then releasing that feeling. And at that point, that's when you don't need to know the why.
Yeah, exactly. It becomes a lot easier. It's like searching for the why perpetuates a narrative of I'm the victim, you're to blame. It always perpetuates this separation. But if we are working with psychological tools to get us to become spiritually liberated, then we have to start to move away from solidifying separateness to using the psychological tools of processing of somatics to getting us to understand that we're interdependent, that we're interconnected, that we don't exist in a vacuum, that we don't exist independently of everyone else and everything else, that we are a passing, moving experience, you know? And it only happens in the context of all of life. Like the ways we think and feel and relate, it's all in context of each other. Look at the ways. Just examine yourself a little more, your inner mechanics. It's all relational, you know?
And that
nothing is originating independently from your own side, you know?
And that's the work that I do clinically is really the relational work, which is so incredibly powerful because we are relational beings and we need and thrive on human connection. The reason that we are as lonely as we are is because we don't have it and we have to find our way back to it. Oh, we are speaking the same language, my friend.
Yeah.
Can I ask you?
This is so great.
I know. I love you. I love your energy. Oh, that's what I wanted to say. You were talking earlier about presence, and I wanted to talk a little bit about energy too, because that's, there's the presence of being present, but I think also like when you bring into the space, the energy in which you bring, the love in which you bring, how do you think that transmutes or transforms?
You know, I have to unhumble myself for a second and to celebrate a decade of effort to now be more effortless. I think because I present effortless and because I help people relax by doing nothing, just existing in my own body, I want to just emphasize that this is a decade in the making. It took a lot of effort to be effortless now. And there's still days and times where I do need to put a lot of effort into being in my body. But I want to remind us all that presence has a quality of warmth. My friend Amanda Gilbert said this so beautifully, that our awareness has a quality of warmth. And what is our presence if it's not awareness? Like what happens when we're faced by eyes that really see us, you know? We feel warm, we feel fuzzy, we feel relaxed. And that is this nonverbal field of presence that we can all tap into by being in our bodies. And it is excruciatingly hard at this to start because we are afraid of being bored. We're afraid of feeling. We're afraid of being here. We are finding reality more interested on the screen versus in real life. We forgot the last day that we, sat outside and watched the leaf fall off the tree, dance its way all the way through the air to the point that it landed in our belly, reminding us to take a breath. You know, first thing you said to me, I said, "How are you, Amy? This is off the record, you all, but you described this beautiful fall day." And I was like, "Oh, I like you already." because that poetry, Amy, that you said, I was like, oh my God, I feel a little emotional just thinking about it, because that shows that you are deeply in your body, that you are thirsty for poetry, that you are thirsty for life, for living, for being here. And so many people are, unfortunately, it's not, people are not intended. They're not out there seeking to distract.
Right.
They want to stop and feel what it's like to be in their bodies, what it's like to, oh, wow, the sun is kissing my skin. Wow, the wind is dancing my body. Oh, wow. Like, we want that, but we're so afraid of what it takes to do it, because it will require you to feel. And we've normalized not feeling for so long. We've built our lives to be booked and busy, which essentially means, how much can I spend out of my body every single day so I don't have to feel? Look at how we watch TV these days, with the phone in our hands and the screen, and the TV. And we're eating, we're scrolling, and we're watching.
Right. And
it's
we're
just
and we're scrolling and we're watching.
Exactly. Well, literally, the phone goes from the living room to the kitchen to the bedroom to the bathroom. There's no escaping. And now with the announcement last week about the glasses, like, it's going to become even harder to feel. It's going to become even harder to be in our bodies, to be present. And just remember that the greatest gift we can offer each other is our presence. It's nonverbal. People ask me, oh, what do you say to someone who's dying? What do you offer to someone? When I was doing my training at the hospital, you really learn, as the rabbi, my mentor there, Rabbi Sarah Baruch, who was an incredible angel in my life, she would say, you are the cookie. There's nothing to offer. Be the cookie.
I love that.
And it took me a moment to arrive at this place, because growing up with a Lebanese father and an Italian mother in Brazil, our culture is to gift. The gift giving is by actually having a physical item to offer. And that's beautiful too. But in the psychosomatic spiritual space of transformation, of healing, of liberation, it's nonverbal. We have to bring the warmth of our presence, and the warmth of our presence only gets turned on when we are in our bodies. Otherwise, you look around, you feel suffocated next to some people, because they're so far away from their bodies. They're so deep into the future, or so far into the past, and they're not here. And then we start to question, our empathy is turning us into these hard shells instead of leading us into compassion. When we feel that someone is not in their bodies, instead of us being like, oh my God, I don't like this person. Oh my God, this person gives me the ick. Instead of saying that, empathy should lead you to compassion, which means what? You should take a deeper breath. You should trace yourself back into your body, refresh your awareness, refresh yourself into your body, so much so that it invites the person who's not in their body into their body, because that's all we want, is to be here and now. But our society and our trauma and our pain has created these systems, these structures that literally propagate leaving, disassociating, distracting.
Well, and let me share that it wasn't all beautiful while I was watching, while I was letting the wind blow through my hair, because my daughter, as the reason for those who are watching, I'm in my car, for those who are listening, is that my daughter is playing in her final tennis match of her high school career, her tennis tournament. So I'm recording in the car, but my anxiety throughout this match was like at a level 10. So I'm like watching and being present to like the beauty of the blue sky, and also to the discomfort that I'm feeling inside, and how intense that is at the same time. Like, both of those things were true. It was a beautiful day, and I felt so lucky that I am able to, one, like Bluetooth from my car and watch her and record this podcast. And she's not playing now, so I'm not being present to her now, and I'm in tune to like the intensity of the experience as well, which is uncomfortable, but also what makes us human, I think. Not I think.
And I just want to, and I also want to raise what you said and celebrate it. What you said about like, I can be uncomfortable and still see beauty. I think that's a huge thing, Amy, of all of your years of practicing and liberating yourself from the shackles of the past. It allows us to arrive at this place. So many people, the way they feel colors the way they see the world. There's no separation, there's no openness. And that is just, I just want to name, because for the listener, this is a sign of wellness right there, what Amy said.
So last question I have for you. Manifestation is pretend spirituality for capitalists.
Oh no.
I made it to the end of the book. I made it to the end. God. So can you say more? I have
we need a little bit more time though, but go. Give me the rest of it.
Another podcast, a full-on recording on that?
I'll give you something today because it's so important. But in short, we need to realize that having the exact outcome happen for ourselves, that serves us alone, is the opposite of spirituality. Because the goal of the spiritual path is to develop altruistic tendencies, a selfless nature across. And don't say, oh, that's because you're a Buddhist. No, every single major faith tradition in the world that holds truth, that holds weight, that actually supports people to become better humans, they say the same thing. The whole gig of the spiritual path is to become selfless, to develop our selfless nature, to become more altruistic. And it's the opposite of what we see in the modern day manifestation space of, I want to manifest this dream body so I can have the husband of my dreams, so I can be seen in this way. I want this car, I want this house, I want this thing. People's dream boards or mood boards are entirely driven towards themselves. People ask me, they look at all the celebrities that I've worked with, these global superstars that have gone to their homes, have traveled the world, have done TV, all these things. Did you ever put any of these global stars on your board? No, never. Who's been on my board? Mother Teresa, the saints, the sages. I want to walk their path. And then guess what happens? The beautiful consequence of wanting to be selfless, of developing selflessness, is abundance, is creativity, is these incredible, mind-blowing experiences that you're like, how am I on a TV show with the biggest rapper in the world? How am I in a plane with the most famous couple in the world? Like, how? It just, you realize, oh wow, this is the consequence of being selfless.
That's how
this
I felt with Lisa.
Yes, exactly.
She's my friend, and I call her she's our Taylor Swift. Like, she's our spiritual, just like our spiritual. We worship at the altar of Lisa Miller and what she's doing for spirituality.
Exactly. Yeah. And the last thing I want to say, it's, yes, you can manifest you can dream your own dream. But if you're not rested and relaxed, your dream is always going to be self-serving. Okay. And your dream should, capital S, always have the intention behind to benefit others. Because otherwise, once you live that dream, it will never be enough. Right. Enoughness and a sense of fulfillment only comes when it's relational, when it's helping other people, when it's uplifting others. Look at all the research about you getting good news and only you experience the good news on the couch by yourself. It lasts for a very short amount of time. It comes and goes like a flash.
Right.
Now, when you share the good news with somebody else, it literally intensifies and multiplies. This is the same thing. We must realize our relational nature, this relationality that we truly are at the base of our being. Because of it, it's required that we're thinking collectively. Less about me, more about we, and moving towards this space is very different from what's being told in the manifestation space. And the last thing I'm going to say, because spirituality is political, people who are preaching, I can help anyone manifest their dream life. I just want to say that it's impossible for all people to manifest their dream life. We live in samsara. This reality has flaws, has a broken system at play, and you're preaching this. It's an actual harmful theology, didactic, whatever verbiage you want to use, because there are people with certain circumstances that don't have it easy as well as white people do, as people with thinner bodies, as people with able bodies. You know, this reality of like manifest your dream life for all. I'm sorry, but the truth is black, brown, queer, disabled, fat bodies, we don't have it as easy as white, thin people do. And to say that, it's a very harmful approach, and claiming that to be spiritual, it's the opposite of spirituality, you know, instead of preaching in this way. And I don't have the answer, to be honest. I just know that we have to find a trauma-informed approach to addressing people living healthy and meaningful lives, you know? And you see the word choices here, healthy and meaningful.
Right.
I'm not even preaching happy, because that is also part of this vernacular that creates suffering, more suffering, you know?
I always say like the happiest place you can be is learning how to cope with the waves that life throws at you. That's what it's about, is being able to learn.
You're so Buddhist. Oh my God. I've
heard a lot of people over the years. I've trained with a lot of people, and I always, I mean, it's not his idea, but John Breer, who is a trauma therapist, probably like one of the OGs in the trauma space before trauma became kind of the buzzword, always talked about like, you can't ride the waves, but you can learn to surf. I'm sure he didn't originate that idea, but I use it all the time.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good.
If people want to reach out, if they want to learn about what you're doing, your book, Spiritually We, is out now. Where can they learn more about you and your amazing work and your beautiful energy and everything that you have to offer the world? Because I feel like we could have talked for like 2 more hours today, but in the
oh my God, me too.
In the business of presence, I think my daughter's playing again. So
okay, go support your sweetie pie. That's so amazing. Thanks for being a sweet, kind mom, making time for that. That's really beautiful. Where people can find me on social media, come to my Instagram at Sah D'Simone, SAHDSIMONE, and on there you find all the things. Come to the membership portal where we dance together, get the book, get the Oracle deck.
You got it all.
We also there's so many things, there's so many things. And thank you for having me. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you. And thank you for being patient with me in this odd space of odd location.
Honey,
my husband was like, you should do this. Like, you should have like a mobile podcast now where you like take your podcast on the road. I'm like, that's so sure about that. But I appreciate your flexibility with me today. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you, love.
Like what you heard today and want to hear more? Wondering what comes next and what it all means? Head over to Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, or anywhere you get your podcasts and hit subscribe. Also, if you could take a minute to rate and review my podcast, I would really appreciate it. Stay tuned as we continue to explore life, death, and the space between.